Hello, welcome to video number 9 in our series Microsoft Certified Professional Developer 4.0 with ASP.NET and C#. The exam focus is 70-515. Content is owned and created by Ravi Nanganuri, Microsoft MVP, .NET So video number 9, we're going to talk about AJAX and .NET 4.0. So AJAX, or Asynchronous JavaScript and XML, as you may have heard it called, has been around a while. Previous versions of .NET required more setup initially to get it to work. So if you're using for example, .NET 3.0, you had additional stuff you needed to install. .NET 3.5 had some built-in stuff. There was still quite a bit of stuff going on in web config at that point. It's more of a first-class citizen in .NET 4.0. You'll notice the very clean web config files. Much of the registration information has been pushed down into the machine config for this. We're going to, in an upcoming video, get into still additional things you may install for like extenders with the AJAX control toolkit and all that, which is a shared or open source project by Microsoft on Codeplex. But much of the AJAX stuff is just built in. Your ASP.NET web apps are just going to be AJAX ready out of the box with 4.0. So AJAX controls, there are some core controls you're going to want to understand for the exam fundamentals for sure. On the server side, the script manager, this is required control. If you're going to have AJAX functionality going on, you're going to need this script manager. It's going to do some various functionality for you beyond just being required, such as combining scripts, this type of thing. We'll get into that as we go. Script manager proxies are going to be used similarly if we're using master pages. The update panel, which we'll explore here, it's a fundamental server control. Update progress bar is just a control used for a nice user experience. The update panel, which we'll demonstrate, can be used, and it kind of had a bad rap in earlier versions of AJAX. There's definitely some techniques you can use to make it more lightweight, so to speak. But we can certainly leverage update panel very easily and make your applications AJAX enabled, as we'll see. The benefits of AJAX are to give a much better user experience. See our Visual Studio 2008 series for kind of fundamentals around why and what for AJAX. I'm going to create a simple ASP.NET Web empty application here. So I'm just showing you the template I'm using. There's nothing fancy about this. It's just a simple ASP.NET Web template. If you look in the web config, you're going to notice it's very clean. There's nothing really here. There's simply the configuration section with the debug equal true, and the registration information. Again, much of what was going to needed to be due to AJAX on previous versions of .NET would have had to been in the web config. It's not here now. I'm going to just add a web form to our application. So again, keeping it very simple at this point, we simply have a web form and a plain old ASP.NET Web application. And at this point, I've just fast forward a little bit, I've got a button and a label on the form. So with nothing more than a button and a label, where I'm setting the time to now. Much of the AJAX examples you'll see, the classic examples use time as a very powerful way to kind of show what's going on with AJAX here. If I click the button, you notice I get the new time. And this is just a normal page, but notice what's happening behind the scenes. Even with just a button and a label, there's quite a bit of stuff getting just kind of pushed over the wire here. It happens very fast. Locally for me, just a button and a label, but it's posting back every time I click this button, and I'm updating the time here. So, you know, I'm sending all the data over from the web server back over to the client. And, you know, this could be considerable overhead on larger pages. So really all that needed changed in my example was this span tag with the label and the time. That's really the only thing I needed to update. So wouldn't it have been nice if I would have just been able to update that specific part of the page? Well, that's the benefits of AJAX. That's what we can do, which can provide a very drastic, better user experience when used appropriately. Now, you have AJAX extensions in your toolbox just directly. You're going to have to drag and drop the script manager. I mentioned that script manager is required to use AJAX. So if you're new to AJAX, you've got to use that. And I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop an update panel as well. So at this point, I've got an update panel and a script manager. Now I can drag and drop multiple update panels on the screen. We're going to talk about that in future videos, how to use more than one component here. At this point, the fundamentals, let's just try to dive into understanding. We've got one update panel. We've got a script manager on the screen. We currently have a button and a label that kind of living outside of the AJAX world. I'm going to drag and drop a button inside the update panel. And I'm also going to drag and drop a label inside the update panel. So now we have two buttons, two labels. And the idea here is some of the stuff I have is going to be AJAX enabled. So I've got a label and button control. And what the update panel is going to provide us is basically a wrapper that's going to say, okay, if you're living inside of the update panel, we're going to qualify you to basically do asynchronous operations, like partial page postback, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit visually so we can kind of see this. But you know, the update panel is not going to render anything visually to us on the screen. It's simply a place where we can place other controls that we want to participate in this experience, where I'm going to basically, versus doing a full page postback, just go and get a partial the data that we needed and send it back. And we'll see how that affects the user experience. So there is one issue I have currently. If we looked at the HTML, you'll see I've got my update panel here above actually what I have my script manager. I'll make a few more BR tags to kind of clean this up. That is not going to be allowed. One of the nuances here is you're going to have to place the script manager actually above everything else that's going to use it. So in this case, just the update panel. So you notice I have my normal button, my normal label at the top. That's fine. But the script manager would need placed above the actual update panel itself, where we have the other button, other label. If we try to run this even, you're going to get a runtime error. It's going to say, hey, very descriptively, you must have the script manager appear before any controls that need it. So that's one of the new nuances or gotchas, just to kind of know. Again, the error page is very explanatory as well. So I'll just simply cut that in the HTML, and then we can paste it back up here above the update panel. Now, the script manager does more than just this required control. We'll get into future videos about how it can use combine scripts and do fancier things to even further help you. Now, at this point, if you see, if we're going to go ahead and just compile this, it'll run just fine. I've got just a button click where I'm basically setting the date time now on the first button. I want to do something similarly with the Ajax button. So the Ajax button, I'm also just going to set the label text, and in this case I'm going to go back and name the label appropriately to something more descriptive like label Ajax. But the idea here is we're going to click the Ajax button, and we're going to set the label, which lives inside the update panel. We'll set that time the same way, but you'll see the difference with just being inside the update panel and it being Ajax enabled, so to speak, what the big difference is. And again, what that will be is I'll only be updating that part of the page that needs it. We will not need a full postback. So on large or even normal pages, if you start to leverage Ajax in this way, you can get some big usability benefits. You can imagine, you've all seen if you've done .NET development, what full postbacks can affect user experience, sending all that data back and forth, even when it's stale or doesn't need changed. So notice I've just reran this at this point. If I click load, at this point, I'm full postback. It's not taking long for our example, but you see on the bottom of the screen like the blue highlight go across. You know, if you've done development before on large pages, that's not nearly as quick, or depending on the web server, etc. Now you notice if you look at the source here, you will see some new scripting stuff, some of the JavaScript and the various scripting stuff we're going to get into later on. But if you see the Ajax button, as I click it here, what's happening here at this point is this time is still getting updated, but notice in the bottom there is no blue highlighter going across. I'm not actually sending a full postback. If you had some type of a sniffer on this, or you were able to look at the traffic, you would see the much less data coming over the wire. I'm only sending what needs changed at this point. Now we're going to talk about how I still could optimize this a bit further in a moment. I'm sending a bit too much data, but it's much better than if I'm sending all of the data just to change the time on a screen. So points or places on your applications where you're only changing parts of the data on the screen and you're having to do a full postback, those are going to be opportunities to perhaps come in here and leverage this. Now, I've got the button inside the update panel as well at this point. That is overkill. One of the ways you can optimize your update panel and the Ajax experience is via triggers, and this is going to be on the certification exam. You're going to want to understand how to use triggers. We'll demonstrate that right now. All I'm going to do at this point is simply cut the button and get it outside of the update panel itself. So it's just like the other button. It's now living outside the panel. But what I can do is wire it up, so to speak, if I was to basically use a trigger element. So currently right now in the content template you see, I only have 2 BR tags, and I don't even need those. And I've got this label control that I want to update. So all that really should be in your content template is the controls that you need to update. You can use triggers to say, okay, I'm going to basically point to that button or that control ID, and what event, which will be the click event, that will cause the asynchronous postback, which will cause the contents of the update panel to be updated. So you notice I've got this ASP postback trigger. You also had a normal postback trigger you could use as well. I'm just going to wire this to the control ID, which in this case is just the AJAX button itself, and then the click event is the only other required field, which we can use, which will be the click, quote unquote. So control ID and event name really are your two pieces here. Now, as we'll see in a second, you can also do this from the design surface. You wouldn't have to be in the HTML doing this manually. But the whole point of this is it's going to react and act the same way. We're just sending one less piece of data over the wire. We didn't need to send the contents of the button each time. That button had not changed. So why are we posting that back and sending all that data back? So you can really tweak and optimize your user experience with AJAX, in general, and even take it further with doing stuff like this. So it's the same behavior. You see, I get a full post back if I click the first button. The time changes on the second button, but I'm not sending now that button over the wire. So it's an optimization technique. So again, there's some design time ability here as well. If you click the update panel via properties, you can actually get in. There's a triggers property here with this little ellipsis you can click, and you could add, remove triggers and whatnot. So what we're going to get into in the next few videos is go further with this client-side scripting and AJAX abilities, get into the AJAX control toolkit. All of this, as you'll see documented on the Microsoft website, is part of the MCPD exam. So you'll want to be able to do this. Just being a server-side developer is not enough.